everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. This is going to be a session which we'll have on data engineering. The speaker for today is Dr. Deepika Prakash from NIIT University. Dr. Deepika obtained her PhD from Delhi Technological University in the area of data warehouse requirements engineering and has over 10 years of experience, both academic and industrial, in the area of data engineering. As a researcher, she's authored a number of papers in international journals and conferences and has co-authored a book titled Data Warehouse Requirements Engineering, a Decision-Based Approach, published by Springer in 2018. She's on the program committee of international conferences like ENAS and has delivered many lectures at institutes like IIIT Delhi, NSIT Delhi, MRCE, and BPIT. Her current research interests include data warehouse systems, NoSQL databases, and data management for IoT systems. I'm requesting everybody to kindly put yourselves on mute and also all the gadgets around you on mute. Today, we also have two alumni from NIIT University, Harshvardhan and Rishabh. I'll be introducing them as we go along. We'll start with Dr. Deepika giving us a little background on her lecture, post which we'll be more than happy to take questions in the chat window on your right side. I'm again requesting all of you to remain on mute and keep your gadgets on mute around you as well. And you can put in your questions, which we'll be taking as we go along in the session. Over to you, Dr. Deepika.
Okay, thank you so much, Manisha, for that introduction. So I will begin this presentation by first saying that data engineering can also be referred to as big data engineering. So if any of you find people working in big data engineering, it is almost the same as data engineering. Now, I have structured my talk as such. What I will do is I will first take you through what data engineering is really about, and then simultaneously I will also tell you about the emerging trends. Now this I will do through various systems that one knows and one fancies using maybe one day. Now let us come to what data engineering is all about. Any business, okay, it can be a kirana store, it can be a puncture repair guy, any business, always we know generates data and it also utilizes data, right? So in data engineering, one must understand this fact because data is very central to this entire notion of data engineering. Let us understand this through various systems. Today, some businesses have what we call apps, right? And the entire business is app driven. So I've got a screenshot of Zomato here. You can have other apps like Uber, etc. So there are systems like app-oriented systems that deliver services. I hope all of you recognize this picture. This is a drone, right? So drones generally have been defined as what? As autonomous self-data generating systems. So drones are another example that we are going to consider. Do you recognize what is there on the extreme right? It is a self-driving car. Now, a self-driving car is an AI car. Sure, there is AI in it, but it is also generating and utilizing a lot of data. Smart cities, that's what the IoT platform is entirely based upon. Right? So we will consider, I just introduce various kinds of systems to you. And what I want you to think about is how many of these really require some kind of data to operate. Okay, think about this. How many of these systems are actually generating data? All right. And if you think about it, you will get to know that most of the systems, most of these service-oriented systems not only utilize data, but they are also generating lots of data. What do you do with this generated data? Okay. So how do you go from utilization to, okay, so there are some various tick marks. So how do you go from generating data to utilizing data to generating data, and what do you do with this generating data? Now I find this entire, I request people to not annotate the screen because it just disrupts the entire presentation, right? So let's look at this classical example of Notre Dame burning. This happened last year in Paris, as most of us know. And this is one example that is a classical data engineering that led to the success of extinguishing that fire. Now, what does one have here? One has, if you look at the background, you actually have the church, the big Notre Dame burning. Now they wanted to know the positions of the entire site. How is the flame progressing? What is the structural condition, etc. You can't get up there, right? So therefore they deployed these drones. Now let us understand this from an extreme data engineering point of view, which also gets you to understand what data engineering is all about. Now, as I've already mentioned, what are drones? They are generating data. Now, in this case, think about, let's take this black drone, for example. What sort of data do you think he is generating, right? So I've got some data aspects here. So drone data is generally geospatial. Geospatial means it gives you the geo coordinates, it gives you some raster information, basically all GIS related information. Now these drones actually had cameras that were capturing imagery. So there was a lot of images that were being captured. They had thermal sensors. They were capturing, therefore, thermal images, heat maps, what we call heat maps, getting captured. All the, some other binaries, etc. So this is all the data that was getting generated by each drone that was flown into the air. This is where data engineering now starts. The first thing you must recognize here is that there are different kinds of data. There is coordinate data, right? There is images, JPEG, etc. There are binaries. There will be some textual data. There will be some numeric data. There are different forms of data. Now, what data engineering does is asks you to collect this sort of data, to transform this sort of data, and to analyze this data. Collection is a big issue because there are different formats leads to different collection methodologies. Transformation, I'll give you an example of transformation. Let's take images. Now when the drone is actually, this camera and the drone is actually capturing images, not all the images will be high quality, not all of them will be useful. There will be a lot of stitching up of imagery that you'll have to do in order to actually produce a usable data set. So this is a very simple example that I've used of transformation of data. All the data that is generally generated necessarily is transformed into a more usable form, and that is the second aspect of engineering of data. Okay, so from raw data, you're trying to make it into something useful. The moment you made it into something useful, you can sit and analyze it. What was the analysis that was done in this case? This sort of imagery was going into the apps. So there were people who were analyzing this sort of burning of the Notre Dame, and they were getting to know where exactly the flames were. There were a lot of structural engineers, civil engineers who were sitting. They were able to now understand the structural damage that had got done to Notre Dame. They could even look at the spike of the Notre Dame and see when it's going to fall, how it's going to fall, at what angle it's going to fall, etc. So basically, this is a very successful example of data engineering helping in a natural international calamity. Now, I'll not go through the slides so much. This is just to expose you to the fact that when the Notre Dame was burning, firefighters were not getting into the Notre Dame, right? There was what was very famously called the Colossus. Colossus is a firefighting pot. Now, this firefighting robot or pot was actually sent into the church, and it was basically having temperature sensors, it was having emission of gases, amount of carbon monoxide, etc. Again, data engineering was put to effect. You were collecting data, you were transforming data, you were analyzing data in order to take a decision as to where to send the firefighting pot. It's a very successful example of data engineering. I come to another example. This example is of Uber. Okay, all of us use Uber, right? There are several aspects to Uber. One is my view, your view, etc. There's yet another view, which is the driver's view, right? There is a third thing that happens in Uber, which is tracking of data that gets done, tracking of the ride that gets done. So there's different aspects in Uber. Now, let us try and understand what is the infrastructure that you as a data engineer need to build in order to build this data pipeline. That means how are you going to collect, transform this data? So there's an entire data infrastructure that you guys need to build. This is got from the official site of Uber, and this is the Uber data structure that is really available for Uber to do data engineering. Now notice the extreme left side, it is actually showing where Kafka, schema-less, MySQL, etc. is written. It is actually catering to the different forms of data that are available. They go through these different steps in the streaming process, and finally, analysis in your house. Is all data useful? Yeah, that's the question. Is all data something that I need to collect and I need to process? Let's take this example of a driving car. Now, suppose, let's look at this scenario. It's a common ethical problem that one deals with. You are driving at breakneck speed, right? And because you're driving at breakneck speed, suddenly you see two things in front of you. You see a tree and you see a man in front of you. You try and apply brakes, it doesn't work. You are going to you're going to collide with one of these, either the tree or the man. Which one would you choose? The self-driving car would be programmed to choose the tree problem, right? This is good data. You can feed back into the system. I will change this in a bit. Now again, the self-driving car, or you are driving a car, there are two things in front of you, a man and a little boy. You are going to collide. I mean, the accident is imminent. Which one are you going to choose? Okay, it's not only an ethical, but the issue also leads to spurious and bad data. Suppose one moment one self-driving car chooses the man. Does that mean that the self-driving car, does that mean that this data is going to be processed as necessarily any self-driving car is always going to hit a man? Similar and vice versa. Suppose a self-driving car hits a child, a little baby. Should all self-driving cars hit babies? So this is the sort of data which is considered bad data, which is considered spurious data. And you must not feed this data back into the system. Rather than this, it is better to discard this data. So as a data engineer, you don't just collect any data that comes to you. You have to have effective code, effective programs in such that all this sort of, you can take decisions about which data should actually be considered for decision making and which data should not be considered for decision making. It's the same case. People will use the example of drones, right? How much collateral damage is good damage in a drone? Just because one drone has killed 50 villagers doesn't mean all drones, that becomes the standard and 50 villagers get killed. So these are examples of about how you should select data that was going to the system. This is again the task of a data engineer, by the way. Can you read this and tell me, rather think about it, I can also answer it. Can you think of a recent failure of, first, let's consider failure of data collection, and next, consider example of data engineering. Okay, so we are all living in this COVID era, right? Now, where do you see failure of data collection? You see it in the migrant problem that is currently, it's the biggest humanitarian crisis of India. Right? So this is a classical example of data collection. You have the Aadhaar cards, etc., of every single migrant, right? But their addresses are not the address of the place necessarily they are working in, and you do not know where they are working, you do not know in what sector they are working, and therefore there is colossal deficiency in the system in terms of data collection, which has led to this, some experts say, which has led to this entire migrant problem. I can give you an example of failure of data engineering also during this crisis. About 2 months back in March, what happened was there were a lot of people, about 700 people came back to Punjab from abroad. Now, there was at that time no quarantine really in place, and they all dispersed and they went into their native villages. And suddenly, one of them these 700-800 tested positive. So now what was the task of the Punjab government? They had to get hold of all the other people. They couldn't, because the data that they had, again, they were not able to process to get hold of the people at all. It was a complete failure of entire systems in place, data engineering in place. You can see a number of failures that occur even today in the not necessarily when we are faced with a crisis, but even everyday life, there's a huge problem in data collection and engineering. And this has been amplified today because there is a lot of data that is getting generated. So let's come to what data engineering is. You have to build systems, okay? I showed you the Uber system, for example. Similar systems have to be built. What do these systems do? They unify data. I showed you 3 ways in which you are unifying data. We have to do a bit of modeling of data. I've not touched upon that, but that can be done when you're doing the data engineering course. You have to build what we call data pipelines. You have to maintain the pipelines. You have to optimize the data pipelines. Then finally, where does this data go? If this data goes into a data warehouse, then you can do analytical use. If otherwise, it can go for normal operational use. What should you do to become a data engineer? You should be a strong programmer, because those systems don't come into the picture unless you can program, and program really, really well. So you have to be a very, very strong programmer. You have to know lots and lots of technologies. I just showed you the entire technology stack, right, of Uber. So you have to know that majority of those technologies, lots of technologies. You have to be extremely passionate about building systems. It has been seen that if you're not passionate about building systems, data engineering is really not for you. You have to be passionate about building software systems. You have to love to learn, because these technologies keep changing, versions keep changing. You'll have to constantly program and reprogram. Adjust to new data, new types of data. So this is basically what you should really, if you are doing this, you're basically a successful data engineer. Data engineering today is becoming one of the top careers, requirements for industry, if you want. There is Forbes, there is O'Reilly, they all say that today for every single data scientist who is available, 5 data engineers are required. So there's an extreme dearth of data engineers today, and that is why this is one field where young students or like you can definitely step in and create your own space here. So now, what are the different kinds of careers that you can build? Data engineer, of course. You can become a big data architect. So a big data architect is going to, for example, look at systems like this on the right of the screen. So those are big data systems. So you are, as an architect, you're going to develop systems like that. You can be a feature engineer. What does feature engineer really mean? A feature engineer basically selects the features that actually have to be processed and features that don't have to be processed. So this is also a big, big task. You can become a data warehouse architect or a business intelligence developer. You can finally become a data analyst. And I think some of our alum that is present here, they are all analysts. Now, what are the skills? Many of you, when I interact with during your interactions, your SPIs, etc., do mention you have learned Java in your 11th, 12th standard, you have learned Python in your 11th, 12th standard, and that is absolutely excellent, because it already gives you a base for becoming, a very good programmer. So you should be very good in either of these languages, Python, Java, or Scala. You have to understand the ecosystem. Ecosystem is how the entire technologies are going to interplay with one another, etc. So you have to understand that. You should have extremely strong mathematical skills for any sort of analysis. You should have a logical mind, because programming requires a very, very strong logical mind. And you should have this logical mind, otherwise you are basically not able to build these huge systems. Now, what I've done is I've introduced the topic of data engineering to you, and this entire real-time systems that we are going into is, or that we are using today, is really the kind of system that one is looking at when we talk about an emerging trend or a new trend of designing systems. All right, so I will take a lot of questions here, and as you ask me your questions, I'm going to explain further about data engineering.
Thank you so much,
Manish.
Deepika.
Yeah.
We've already got a couple of questions that have been coming in, and I can start by asking you those. But before that, I would really like to introduce Rishabh Sharma to the audience here. Rishabh has completed his graduation in finance and masters in business management from the University of Mumbai before he joined NU. He's worked with CRISIL for almost 4 years in the US public finance field and joined his MBA in business analytics with NIIT University. Currently, Rishabh is working with WNS Global Service as a business analyst. And could we have Rishabh on screen, please? Rishabh? So I think he's there in the audience. We'd be happy to take in questions for Rishabh and have Rishabh answering those. We also have Harshvardhan in the audience today. Harshvardhan finished his classroom program at NIIT University and joined WNS as an intern in 2017. During his internship, he worked with a UK-based coffee company for their campaign and loyalty program management. His second assignment was with their pre-sales healthcare team at WNS, where he contributed to their healthcare collateral. And he's currently working as a web analytics and digital optimization consultant for a UK-based insurance major. And we'll be happy to take in questions from Harshvardhan also. So let me start by asking the questions that have already come in for, and I would request these questions to be answered by either Deepika or Harsh or by Rishabh. One of the questions that has come in is what really is the scope of data engineering, and is it a subset of computer science engineering? That's a popular question that a couple of students are wanting to know.
Okay, I can take that up. So data engineering, of course, is I don't know what you mean by subset, but it is computer science. It's core computer science. It is building systems. So it is core computer science. And so what would you need basically to do to become data engineering is you require to basically be able to integrate different technologies up together in order to build your data engineering system and put it into place. So yes, it is absolutely computer science. It's core computer science. You require a degree in computer science to be able to build systems, right? So it is core computer science.
So automatically that means that it is important to be from a science background in school to be able to pursue a course in data engineering.
See, today what's happening is you require, I don't think it is necessary to be from the science background very personally, and having worked in the data warehousing sphere so much, you don't have to be. You have to be an avid programmer. You have to understand, have a logical brain. And if you have that, you can learn a bit of core computer science on the job, be good to go. So science, I don't think is required in that sense.
So I would like to add to that, like we were a batch of 66 and not everyone was from a science background. And at this particular moment, all 66 of us are working as consultants in the area of analytics and data science. So I don't think science is required for everyone to jump into this area. So you can definitely develop your skills over a period of time, and then probably ramp it up with some good certifications, grasping knowledge about different languages like Python, R, and there are a lot many new tools like web analytics. As far as Google Analytics was concerned, was not into the picture until lately. But now there are tools like Adobe Analytics in the market as well, which helps you gain insights about what actually is happening on your website. So what how is your customer taking up their journey? Like if there is a 3-point journey, just for an example, if I give you an example of your Paytm transaction. So you basically open your Paytm app, and you add your money, and then you confirm your payment. So your journey is getting completed. Now at a point of time, if you get stuck on the payment screen, you are basically failing in your journey. Your journey is not getting completed. So this is not core analytics, but somewhere we are tracking data of these sort to understand like where customers are facing, what are the pain points that customers are facing while purchasing an insurance policy on an insurance website. So a lot of data from these websites are taken down, and then deep analysis is done on like where exactly are customers falling out of the journey. So if if you feel that you don't have a knack for coding, and you are not very well versed with coding skills in as far as Python and R is concerned, you can you also have an alternative like in the area of web analytics, where you don't have to actually hard code, but then definitely analysis and analytics is still a part of your job. So that this I would like to tell you all that like it's not very necessary to be from a science background. There is a lot in analytics in this particular area of research and analytics, and there is something for everyone. It's just that you have to get accustomed to how that tool works and what's the technology all about.
So, Harsh, could I just ask you about your subjects in school, and
Yes,
how did
so
you do the journey?
yeah, so I was a PCM student, and then I did my engineering in electrical and electronics in 2014, and then I started working with Capgemini as a quality assurance analyst, and I was working with a client called Royal Bank of Canada. So after that, I worked for with Capgemini for 2 years and 11 months, and that's when NIIT happened, and I joined this course. So analytics was something which was very new for me, and initially I struggled. I can be very honest in terms of the CGPA that I had got in the initial semesters, which was very low, and something that I had never expected. Rishabh is also on call, and I think Rishabh can actually relate to me.
Yes,
Yeah,
Rishabh, please feel free to add
So,
wherever you think.
yeah. Adding
so
on to
yeah,
what the Harsh just said, basically, even I was from commerce background only. So, being from a commerce background and getting into this field was totally. It was something which I never expected. For example, I was very new to the coding skills. For a person who is from like marketing and finance kind of background, for him this will help him in his domain knowledge. So when you will join a project later on, there are a lot of aspects which are taken into consideration. For example, if you have worked in an industry which like if you have studied from a field which is not like typically from the coding background, but for example, you are from some chemical, you are a chemical engineer, and you got a project which is about analyzing data related to some aluminum company, let's say aluminum anodizing. So in that, to understand the data, you need the knowledge, the basic knowledge of the chemicals and all those the processes which are related to the aluminum. So for all those kind of stuff, the knowledge which you gain during your school or your college, the initial 11th, 12th college, junior college, that information will be very helpful. So in that domain knowledge, for the domain knowledge perspective, this will play an important role. But yeah, obviously, like if you talk about the coding skills and all, they are very important. But obviously, when you'll get into a college, there will be a lot of students who are from other different backgrounds. So uh, a commerce student is bringing a knowledge of marketing and finance. You are bringing knowledge of from a different specific field, chemical engineering or electrical engineering. All those will they all will be learning coding and the logical, like you need to have the logical aptitude also. So you all will be working on the same kind of like taking the same kind of knowledge and then utilizing your knowledge based on your previous knowledge, the knowledge you took before coming to the college for during your 11th, 12th and your school time.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. I have a question here, which I'll request Professor Deepika to kindly address, and with a contribution from Rishabh and Harsh as well. I have a few students who are asking what are the kind of job opportunities or roles that they could expect after doing an engineering with a specialization in data engineering.
I had just put that up also, so I can say it in a different way, maybe. So, see, if you remember the entire system, one thing you can do is to put this entire system together, right? So, in that case, you can become a data engineer or an architect of systems. So, you can become a big data architect, for example, where you're going to put the system, your entire interplay of your system together. That's one job you get. The second job you get, of course, is this entire analytics, in this entire analytics sphere. So you will have to learn a bit of technologies like Tableau, R, etc. You get jobs of business analyst, data analyst, etc. Then you can also get jobs which are called a feature engineer. I don't know whether you would really appreciate that job at this moment, but a feature engineer again selects what feature has to be put into the system and what does not have to be. Feature in terms of data has to go into the system and what does not go into the system. So these are the different kinds of jobs one can get. You can also, for example, become a Hadoop expert. You can be on a very low level, right? So you can become a Hadoop expert when you're starting out your careers. You can become somebody who does streaming databases. You have somebody who does NoSQL databases. So these are, you can work in the cloud sphere, for example. So these are some of the jobs that you get as a data engineer. It is very vast because every single system requires data infrastructure. And therefore, as long as there are systems that are providing service, you are going to find jobs that are related to catering to that specific domain.
And also to add to Deepika,
Thank
I
you.
would like to say like analytics itself is a very big umbrella, and there are various verticals inside analytics. Like right now in the job industry, I see there are positions coming up as NLP experts. So they expect you to be master in terms of natural language processing. Then there is like my profile. If you see, for example, I am not expert in all the verticals as far as analytics is concerned, but I'm more focused towards web analytics and digital optimization. So you can probably take up one area and you can master that, and then also back it up with a BI tool. Suppose if I give you my example, when I was working for the healthcare team, so we have lately started hearing a lot of clinical about clinical trials after this COVID has sprouted up. Like the drugs are in pipeline, and it might take like 6 to 12 months from now for the drugs to come out in the market. So usually every clinical trial, it lasts for 4 or 5 years without the certainty of it coming to the market. Uh, so every drug has to be regulated by the FDI, and that's when it comes into the market. So every phase of clinical trial, generates a huge amount of data, and you have to screen thousands of patients when the trials happen, and every patient data has to be taken individually, and a lot of patient metrics has to be taken into consideration, and depending on that, the forecasting is done. How will this particular patient behave, how or react to the treatment? So clinical trials, and lately I've also felt like in the pharma space there is a need, there is a sudden need of every pharma company is wanting to build a chatbot for their websites. And these chatbots are not just basic chatbots which welcomes you. These chatbots are advanced chatbots which basically prescribes you the medicines in case you need an urgent support in the wee hours of the day. You basically log into their website, you chat with the chatbot and tell them your symptoms, and the chatbot prescribes you the medicine. And also, in case the chatbot is not able to prescribe you a medicine, it will schedule the earliest appointment as possible the very next day. So the chatbot is trained in such a way that it can address to all the questions that the patient asks. So there is a service from Amazon Web Services called Amazon Lex, which helps you which helps you customize chatbots the way you want a chatbot to work. So if you are into the insurance vertical, you can basically build a chatbot and train it with insurance data. And similarly, if you are into the medical field, you can train the chatbot with medical and clinical data. Uh, yeah. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much, Harsh. I have a question that's come in, and I'm requesting again either Deepika or Harsh, Rishabh, both, all of you can contribute. So, what really is the correctness of data? Because these days we see so much of news, and how much of it is fake, and how much of it is real. I mean, how do you go about that dilemma?
See, this can be solved in two ways. One, there are two sorts of scenarios in which fake news, fake data gets generated and gets absorbed. So first, let's take a case of a company. Okay, the second case we will take is about the society. So now, in a company, you are pretty much able to control the data that you want to go into the system and that the system can generate, right? So if you look at a very closed business or a slightly popular business also, you will not be generating so much fake data because you have systems in place to remove, as I said, spurious data. So if you look at any system, you look at an Apple's internal system itself, Apple's internal system itself will not be generating what we refer to as fake data. So that is one aspect. In a closed loop society or a closed group, there is enough level of algorithms that are in place so that you are able to remove what you define as fake, basically. The other problem we come to is the society's problem, right, about fake news and fake data. Here, the issue is more complicated because there is a notion of the democratic right of a person to actually speak up his mind. So what is fake to you may not be fake to me, etc. Or what is true to you may not be true to me. Having said that, there are systems in place that basically use the notion of tagging. So tagging is again a data engineering tool that is used. So you're able to use the tags and you're able to tag data or news, if you want, which you consider according to your company policy or according to your society norms as fake. Okay, and then you're able to tag it. You know, it just happened today morning, right? Twitter, what it did was it actually tagged one of Trump's tweet as you require more knowledge in order to take it at face value. So there is a tagging that is going on at the back end. That is again classical data engineering. So if you look at the society in large, it is getting done, but you require still a lot more checks, and you require to anticipate the tags and anticipate the news to generate the tags in order to sort of flag this news off. Once it is flagged, there is no problem. You can have different levels. So you can say news that is absolutely not acceptable, remove that from the database if you want, or your data pipeline if you want, and something that is moderately tolerable, you send it through the data pipeline, but then you tag it saying that, okay, it's not something that is for everybody's consumption. And similarly, you can go on tagging it at different levels, and when you send it through the data pipeline, it gets filtered automatically. So that is generally what is being done. My company, when I was in a company, used to do that, and that is how we were able to identify and flag off this sort of fake. So maybe Rishabh and the others can contribute as well.
Great. Rishabh, Harsh, would you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so like as far as the tagging part is concerned, there are a lot of areas like I personally work on, like from a website. If I want certain information, I don't want the data from the entire website, you know. So there is a tool called dynamic tag management that we use in Adobe Analytics. So we basically go to that chunk of the code and we feed our tracking code over there, and that's when we get a prop or an evar, and through that we basically track data for only that particular section of the website. So this was adding to the what ma'am just said about the tagging uh, that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few students here who, of course, we have the students from class 12 who are attending this session. And a common inquiry is that what would be the courses that they can choose and how can NIT University help them get into a career for data engineering?
Okay, so you start by choosing BTech if you want in computer science and engineering. Now, what happens is you choose a particular specialization which we refer to as the big data specialization. Okay, now moment you choose the big data specialization, you will learn a technology that is connected to big data. You learn, as I think Rishabh mentioned, natural language processing, NLP, you learn NLP, you learn information retrieval, you learn these subjects. We tune you to how theoretically and get you almost to becoming a data engineer. Along with that, what we do is we float what we call capstone projects, right? So you will be then made to work on 2 capstone projects. Now, if you choose data engineering, your capstone projects will be connected to data engineering. So you will always get an hands-on on the real problem. Now, why do I say it is a real problem? Because our capstone projects actually come straight from the companies, right? So for example, NIIT Limited itself sends us a lot of these projects. So you're getting real projects from industry. So their data management issues, etc. So you will get those and you will be given those projects. In a semester, you are supposed to deliver a reasonable solution to the company. So you do 2 such projects. Apart from that, what you can do is you can take up research and development in data engineering itself. So for example, you can go to whoever's working in the big data engineering specialization and you can request that professor to give an R&D, research and development project. So you can do that if you want for 4 years, but in the 3rd year, it is mandatory for you to do 1 R&D course. So as part of your curriculum itself, you will be doing enough research in data engineering in order to build the necessary background. You know what research and development course actually does is, apart from teaching you how to do research, if you're a very industry oriented person, it is also teaching you how to adapt to new technologies that will come in. Okay, so it teaches you all that. So if you must go through an R&D course, and after you go through it with the theoretical knowledge, 2 capstone projects, an R&D project, you're pretty much ready to become a data engineer.
Thank you so much, Deepika. Rishabh, Harsh, would you want to add to it, considering both of you are alumni at NIT University?
Yes, definitely. So, I guess the 3rd batch is currently ongoing with the WNS in collaboration with NIT University. So, a lot of subjects are taken into consideration. You are not just restricted to analytics, but a lot of other subjects are also being taught, like finance and accounting. And right now, when I'm actually on floor and working for an insurance major, a lot of projects come in our way where they actually want people with idea about finance with some experience in analytics as well. So I guess NIT gives you a lot of good platforms. There are a lot of courses happening in NIT. There's a collaboration with WNS. There's collaboration with NIT Limited itself, and they have a very good team of visiting lecturers and lecturers in the university. Experts in their own fields. So yeah, I mean, you have a.
Can I just add something there? The finance and the thing that he's talking about, usually along with the BTech program, what we do is you can do a minor. So you can, for example, major in computer science and engineering with data engineering, and you can minor in something. So the minor is what he's talking about. So you can minor in, for example, finance, you can minor in entrepreneurship. So we've got these
Yes.
minor courses that you can go through. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So somebody's asking me, in case you teach data security or security tools.
Yeah, so data security now, of course, is taught. There is an entire specialization which we refer to as cybersecurity. In cybersecurity itself, there is data security is a subset in cybersecurity. So now what we do is this data security, our big data engineering students or data engineering students take the subjects in data security, because, I mean, as you've asked that question, so you obviously are sensitive to the security of data, right? So you do a course on data engineering as well. Yes. But that you will do as a specialization, yeah. Specialized subject.
So Deepika, we're hearing a lot, and of course, you know, it's all in the news about the Sophia, the robo. So how would you link data engineering there? That's a
Okay.
very interesting topic that's trending.
Yes. So everyone recognizes Sophia the robo, right? And everyone knows that Sophia is this big AI, artificial intelligence robo. Now, I want here to make this distinction between what AI is, artificial intelligence is, what data science is, and where data engineering really comes into the picture. Okay, there are three separate things. There is a little bit of overlap that one has to understand. Now, when talks about Sophia, a robo, which is an artificial intelligence robo, what does that mean? She has the ability to learn by herself and respond to different input, right? So she's a robo which is intelligent enough to respond to different input. Remember, there is very little programming that has got done. She's learning on her own. Now, that is artificial intelligence. Where is data engineering coming in? Now, you know, Sophia the robot travels to different countries. So assume Sophia has come to India, okay? Now, the way we interact with her, we have a certain dialect, we have a certain way of speaking, we have a certain culture that comes through the way we talk. Now, this is something that she does not know. So that is where data engineering is really coming into the picture. When I talk to Sophia, there is an input of data that is getting collected in her internal system. Then she is processing the data, she is analyzing the data, and then she is responding to the data that has got engineered and transformed. So even though you consider an AI system, data engineering is something that is at the core of every system, because every system takes input and throws out some output. So for that process to take place, data engineering is a must. So AI is there, it is a self-learning system, but all self-learning systems must have, or all systems must have some aspect of data engineering. Otherwise, this data input output becomes very transactional and there is no intelligence really. There's no transformation of data that takes place.
That's interesting. Thank you so much, Deepika. I would request Harsh and Rishabh to also tell our audience who are very curious to know what really are the placement opportunities or the job opportunities, especially given the whole post-pandemic situation. So can you give us examples from your work, people who are specializing in data engineering, what can they expect in the next 2 years or 3 years?
So as far as the job opportunities are concerned, keeping in mind the COVID crisis, to be very honest, at this point of time, we have a list of all the companies. I also work in sync with the HR team of WNS. So there are a lot of companies which are currently hiring. Like a lot of companies which have currently stopped hiring. But as far as WNS itself is concerned, we have not stopped hiring. As far as hiring for data scientists and data engineering and analytics is concerned, we are still hiring on a regular basis. We still have appetite, to hire individuals with experience in analytics. And apart from hospitality, I don't think there is any other industry. As far as insurance is concerned, there is no impact of COVID on the insurance front. because I personally working on like how many customers are coming on our website, to buy a policy. If I compare it with the same period last year, there is a huge spike which we see this year, and thanks to the COVID crisis. I mean, I should not say thanks to the COVID crisis, but yeah, I mean, it's not affecting the jobs in the insurance industry as such. The only industry I have seen so far is the hospitality. Uh, and not just WNS, there are a lot of other companies which are also hiring as far as AI, data science, and NLP experts are concerned. And we also have, a team of people who have recently joined us. And I having worked for Capgemini also in the past, Capgemini is also hiring at a good pace, and we have all the hirings planned. Like there is no change in the hiring plan as such. The only plans that were there, it has either slowed down or has been deferred. There's no clear cut cancellation as such. And I tell you, this is a very fastly growing field, and there is a lot of scope as far as your future is concerned. You can master whatever you want to. Deepika ma'am just gave you a lot of examples. I also gave you examples of what AWS Lex is all about. Like we were just talking about the Sophia robot. So this Amazon Lex is basically a technology where it is a service for building conversational interfaces into any application using voice and text. So it provides you deep learning functionalities of automatic speech recognition for converting speech to text, and NLP to recognize the intent of the text. So there are a lot of tools in the market. The only need is for us to master those tools. There are a lot of BI tools in the market as well. We have Tableau, we have Power BI. uh, WNS has its own tool. If you can Google out, there is a tool called Agilius, which is a drag and drop tool, very interactive. And there are a lot of areas in the market. As far as just to be very specific, as far as the Power BI industry is concerned, WNS itself has around 40 to 50 vacancies for Power BI consultants, but the vacancies are not filling up as expected. So similarly, we have vacancies for Click, and we have vacancies for Tableau developers as well. So, but BI is still, it's not a very niche area. But then, as far as the consultants and the number of job seekers in the industry is concerned, we don't have as many job seekers in the industry for these technologies. So, if you really want to take this up as a profession, I would recommend you that you are on the right track and you're at the right place. And with the strong pool of mentors and the lecturers and the professors we have at NIIT, this is the best platform for you to uh, build upon on your skills. And we also have a very strong pool of mentors. We have a very strong alumni network in case you need any live projects to work on which are very close to the industry projects. The alumni network can also help you get those projects and get you to intern with companies like WNS. So you there's a lot of scope. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Rishabh, would you want to add something here? Else, I can take maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll just move towards closing. Okay, so Deepika, I have a question for you, and it comes from a student who's saying, is this course tough?
Is the course tough? Computer
Yes.
science is done by people who are extremely passionate. Okay, that's what I believe. I've been in this area now, I don't know for how many years. If you are passionate about building systems, as I say, it is nothing like it. I have been in industry in data engineering. Today I'm in academics in data engineering. Is it tough? Certain things are always tough, but I think that is the fun of it. It is tough but there is always, you're able to always make head through, you're always able to, kind of find a solution. So it is a very interesting course. It keeps you absolutely gripped, and there are so many possible solutions to a single problem. You will realize when you're working that it is again interesting about how you're going to choose one among the different options. So it's a very, very interesting course, tough or not. I mean, I am extremely passionate about it. I have built my career on data engineering. So even if it is tough, it is interesting to find your own solution. But I don't think it is a tough course in that way. It is an
But
interesting
you definitely are very, very fond of your subject, Deepika. It reflects in the way you speak about it with so much affection and love. So just
Yeah.
quick closing remarks from all three of you, and starting with you, Deepika.
So that
Again, how does one go about starting with the journey, assuming that these are questions and the flavor from 12th class students? So at NU, what is that first step that people can take?
Okay, so how do you start your journey to become a data engineer? When you come to NU, first hone your programming skills, become a good coder, take up projects on your own, contact faculty members. They are always there to assist you. Uh, Code yourself and keep coding. Okay, that will basically, for 1 or 2 years, just keep doing that. You'll become a very, very good programmer. Take online projects that are there in Coursera, for example. Try and code them. So first thing is, you have to become a very good coder. Now, the reason why I stress about coding is you get to know about what I was saying. There are different solutions to a given problem. When you're coding, you realize this. You get the ability to choose the best option. You get the ability to optimize your code. So you get the ability to do all this. And that is why I keep saying, become very, very good coders. Then after that, you must simultaneously acquire the skill about learning how to use technology. Because once you start learning how to use technology, tomorrow in industry, you're expected to build technology, right? So you have to learn how to use technology as a first platform. Okay, so do a lot of programming, do a lot of projects that are there online. There are very, very good projects that are available in data engineering. Then you move on to learning technology, and then basically you'll become a good data engineer as you go through